Thank you. Oh, too fast. So culture. Culture is interesting because global culture in particular is the one thing that drives consumer behavior, right? So if you think about consumer behavior and specifically shifts in consumer behavior, it all comes back to that wonderful word of culture. And so if you believe that to be true, and we know it's true because we have research from over 180 countries that tell us that this is true, it would make sense for venture firms to try to understand global culture so they can make investments that are along the lines of those consumer behaviors that are shifting. So why culture? Well, because it's the only intangible thing that can move us. So in this picture right here, you see excitement, you see someone that's overcome, tears, right? Culture is the only thing that can move us to tears, can at the same time drive us to laughter, excitement, etc. It redefines the norm. So in this picture, you have, who's motivating who or who's influencing who, right? Is it Silicon Valley influencing urban culture or rap music? Or is it the other way around, right? I'd argue that it's a little bit of both. Our worlds are converging. Global culture is shifting. It transforms industries, right? So in this picture, it's Uber, it could be Lyft or anything, but it changes the way we live our lives, right? Who would have thought years ago that we'd be renting couches or rooms in someone else's home and that would be acceptable? That we'd be riding in the back of someone else's car that's not a registered or licensed driver, right? These are all cultural shifts. So again, if you believe this stuff, as an investor, it makes sense to invest in entrepreneurs that are closest to these cultures and companies that are trying to ride the waves of these consumer shifts. One trend in particular is the moving from minority to majority, African Americans and Latinos, right? Why is this important? I mean, today, while we are still the minority, we account for 1.3 trillion and 1.5 billion, respectively, of spend in consumer products. We are 30% more likely to invest in technology and consumer products. We're early adopters. And if you ask many, those cultures are catalysts to what's going to come next. So it makes sense to understand these cultures and invest along these shifts. Some more data. This is actually happening. K through 12 is minority majority right now, right? By 2020, the rest of America will be the same. So what should we do? Today, venture capital has seen some success, but I'd argue that it could be even more successful, right? Today, to go out and find deals, we go to the same networks, the same schools, folks that have worked at certain companies, and again, there's been some success. But if we really want to open it up, if we really want to be the drivers in the creation of new markets, if we really want to find true success, solve real challenges, big challenges, then we've got to look in other places, right? We've got to step out of our comfort zone. We've got to make our teams more diverse so that we can understand some of these problems that others see and understand so well. And only then will venture capital move away from, on average, negative returns and move into fully profitable industry. And that's what my firm does. Well, that's only one cultural trend or shift in consumer behavior. There's several others. And so we make bets on a lot of these. So some of our investments here, Thrive Market, basically is democratizing healthy lifestyles and healthy living for the masses, right? Who says you have to live in Palo Alto to have access to the quality of food that you get at a Whole Foods. Thrive is breaking that model. Maven is empowering hairstylists in the extension and weave market, essentially, a $9 billion market, right? Who in here knew that hair weave would be a $9 billion market? And these guys are basically monopolizing the industry right now. AfroStream, on-demand, live streaming video content. Essentially what AfroStream is doing, is working towards, is creating a place where diverse content makers have a home, a place where they can launch their products and have it exposed to millions of people, also doing well. Lens Street, another one of our companies, focusing on low-income folks that have found themselves in debt and is trying to get them out of debt, leveraging models that we've seen be very successful in corporate America. But this isn't new, right? Everyone knows Uber, everyone knows Lyft, everyone knows Airbnb. Why are they so successful? Because they've capitalized on these cultural shifts. Just to name a few, the on-demand phenomenon, right? Our younger generation wants what they want now. They want to pull out their cell phones and order it now and it show up, right? That's one. The move from owning to renting, which is a trend that's only going to continue to increase. The proliferation of mobile phones and the internet around the world, right? Uber's in basically every country. I was recently in Egypt, they were there. I was recently in Singapore, they were there. I was recently in Bangkok, they were there. I was recently in Indonesia, they were there. And they're not the only one, and that's not the only shift. Another one is from download to streaming, which is what we saw with Spotify. But data tells us that it's not even done yet, right? Artists are continuing to look for new ways to monetize, to bring their total self to their consumers, to their customers, and they're gonna do it in a way that involves streaming. So again, in closing, I thank you for your time, but if you really wanna make a dent in venture capital, you've gotta start looking at these cultural shifts. You've gotta start understanding consumer behavior, because that's what successful companies have lived on from day one. Thanks.